Samuel trudged through the flooded streets of Lagos, his worn-out shoes heavy with water. The rain poured down relentlessly, casting a gloomy shadow over the city. As a cleaner in a towering corporate building, he was no stranger to hard work. But on days like this, when the rain seemed to seep into his very bones, he felt like he was drowning in his own struggles. He had just finished his shift, scrubbing floors and cleaning offices for hours on end. His stomach growled with hunger, reminding him that he had barely enough money to buy a decent meal. As he walked, he thought about his life, wondering how he had ended up in this situation. He had dreams just like everyone else, but they seemed to be slipping further and further away. As he turned a corner, he noticed an old woman struggling to carry a heavy basket across the street. The wind howled, and the rain pounded against her frail body. She stumbled, and Samuel's heart skipped a beat as he rushed to help her. He quickly removed his only jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders, shielding her from the rain. "Thank you, my son," she said, her voice weak but filled with warmth. "May God bless you." Samuel smiled and nodded, feeling a sense of satisfaction wash over him. It was a small act of kindness, but it made him feel like he'd done something worthwhile. As they reached the other side of the street, the old woman turned to him and said, "My name is Mama Neoma. What's yours, my son?" "I'm Samuel," he replied, smiling. Mama Neoma nodded, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "I won't forget your kindness, Samuel. May our paths cross again soon." With that, she continued on her way, leaving Samuel to wonder about their chance encounter. He shrugged it off and continued his journey home, feeling a little lighter despite the heavy rain. As he walked, he couldn't shake off the feeling that their meeting was more than just a coincidence. He felt a sense of connection to Mama Neoma, a sense that their paths would cross again soon. Little did he know, their chance encounter would set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. Samuel's life was about to take a dramatic turn, one that would lead him to places he never could have imagined. The rain continued to pour down, but Samuel felt a sense of hope rising up within him. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that he was ready for whatever came his way. As he approached his small apartment, he felt a sense of gratitude wash over him. He may not have had much, but he had a roof over his head and food on the table. And now he had a sense of purpose, a sense that his life was about to take a dramatic turn for the better. Samuel smiled to himself as he opened the door to his apartment. He had no idea what the future held, but he was ready to face it head-on. The next morning, Samuel woke up early, feeling refreshed and renewed. He had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of Mama Neoma and their chance encounter. As he got dressed and prepared for work, he couldn't shake off the feeling that something was about to change. As he arrived at the office building, he was greeted by the familiar sight of suits and ties rushing to and fro. He made his way to the janitor's closet, exchanging quiet greetings with his co-workers. But as he began his cleaning routine, he noticed a buzz of excitement in the air. "What's going on?" he asked one of his co-workers, a friendly woman named Bose. "Madam Laura Daniels is coming to visit," she replied, her eyes wide with excitement. "She's the CEO of the company, and it's not every day that she comes to our office." Samuel's curiosity was piqued. He had heard of Madam Laura, of course, but he had never seen her in person. As he continued his cleaning, he couldn't help but wonder what she would be like. Just then the elevator doors opened, and a statuesque woman stepped out. She was tall, with piercing brown eyes and skin that seemed to glow in the fluorescent lighting. Her hair was styled in a sleek bob, and she wore a tailored suit that seemed to accentuate her every curve. Samuel's eyes widened as he took in the sight of Madame Laura. She was even more beautiful than he had imagined, and he couldn't help but feel a little intimidated. As she made her way through the office, Samuel watched in awe. She seemed to command attention without even trying, and everyone around her seemed to be drawn to her presence. But what really caught Samuel's attention was when Madame Lara's eyes locked onto his. For a moment they just stared at each other, and Samuel felt like he was drowning in her gaze. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. It was a warm, genuine smile, and Samuel felt his heart skip a beat. "Samuel," she said, her voice low and husky. "I've heard a lot about you." Samuel's eyes widened in surprise. How did she know his name? "I'm Madame Laura Daniels," she continued, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "And I must say, I'm impressed by your kindness." Samuel felt like he was dreaming. What was she talking about? "I'm referring to your encounter with my mother last night," she explained, her eyes never leaving his. "She told me all about it, and I must say, I'm touched by your selflessness." Samuel's mind was racing. How did Madame Lara's mother know about their encounter? But before he could ask any questions, Madame Lara dropped a bombshell. "Samuel, I'd like to offer you a new role in the company," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "One that will challenge you and help you grow." Samuel's eyes widened in shock. What was she talking about? But as he looked into Madame Lara's eyes, he knew that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. Samuel was stunned by Madame Lara's offer. He had never imagined that he would be given a chance to work in a high-level position in the company. But as he thought about it, he realized that it was an opportunity he couldn't afford to miss. Madame Lara took Samuel under her wing, teaching him the ropes of the business and introducing him to the company's top executives. Samuel was a quick learner, and he soon found himself thriving in his new role. As they worked together, Samuel and Madame Lara grew closer. They would often have lunch together, discussing business and life in general. Samuel found himself falling for Madame Lara's intelligence, kindness, and beauty. But their love was not without its challenges. Madame Lara's family and friends were shocked and disapproving of her relationship with a nobody like Samuel. They saw him as a social climber, someone who was only interested in Madame Lara's wealth and status. Samuel tried to ignore their criticism, but it was hard. He knew that he didn't fit into Madame Lara's world, and he worried that he would never be able to measure up. Madame Lara, however, was undeterred. She stood up to her family and friends, defending Samuel and their relationship. She told them that she had never been happier, and that Samuel was the one person who truly understood her. As the days turned into weeks, Samuel and Madame Lara's love continued to grow. They would often take long walks together, holding hands and talking about their dreams and aspirations. Samuel had never been happier. He had found his soulmate in Madame Lara, and he knew that he would do anything to make her happy. But little did they know, their love was about to be put to the test. A series of challenges was about to arise, challenges that would threaten to tear them apart. Samuel's past was about to come back to haunt him, and Madame Lara's family was not going to give up their opposition to their relationship without a fight. The love that Samuel and Madame Lara shared was about to be tested in ways they never could have imagined. Samuel's past came back to haunt him in the form of a former friend, Tund. Tund had been involved in some shady dealings, and Samuel had refused to get involved. Now, Tund was seeking revenge, and he threatened to ruin Samuel's reputation unless he paid him a large sum of money. Samuel was devastated. He had thought that he had left his past behind him, but now it seemed like it was coming back to haunt him. He confided in Madame Lara, who promised to help him deal with the situation. But as they worked to take down Tund, Samuel couldn't shake off the feeling that Madame Lara was hiding something from him. She seemed distant and preoccupied, and Samuel began to wonder if she was still committed to their relationship. Madame Lara, too, was struggling with her own doubts and fears. Her family's opposition to their relationship was taking a toll on her, and she began to wonder if she had made a mistake by falling in love with Samuel. As the tension between them grew, Samuel and Madame Lara's relationship began to fray. They argued more frequently, and the love that had once burned so brightly between them began to F Samuel. One day, tragedy struck. Madame Lara was involved in a terrible car accident on her way home from work. Samuel was devastated when he heard the news, and he rushed to the hospital to be by her side. When he arrived, he was met with a sight that made his heart sink. Madame Laura was lying in a hospital bed, her body broken and battered. She was in a coma, and the doctors didn't know if she would ever wake up. Samuel's world was shattered. He had lost the love of his life, and he didn't know how to go on without her. He spent every waking moment by her side, praying for her to wake up and come back to him. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Samuel began to lose hope. Madame Laura showed no signs of waking up, and the doctors told him that it was unlikely she ever would. Samuel's heart was broken, and he didn't know how to heal. He felt like a part of him had died, and he didn't know how to bring it back. Samuel spent months by Madame Laura's side, praying for her to wake up. He had lost all hope, but he couldn't bring himself to leave her. He felt a deep sense of responsibility towards her, and he knew that he had to be there for her, no matter what. One day, as he was sitting by her bedside, he felt a gentle squeeze on his hand. He looked up to see Madame Laura's eyes flickering open. Samuel's heart leapt with joy as he realized that she was waking up. Madame Laura's recovery was slow and painful, but Samuel was by her side every step of the way. He nursed her back to health, feeding her, bathing her, and caring for her every need. As Madame Laura recovered, Samuel realized that his love for her had only grown stronger. He had thought that he had lost her forever, but now she was back, and he was determined to make the most of their second chance. Madame Laura, too, had realized the depth of her feelings for Samuel. She had been given a second chance at life, and she was determined to make the most of it. She knew that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with Samuel, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. As they sat on the beach, watching the sunset, Madame Laura turned to Samuel and said, "I'm sorry for doubting you. I was wrong to mistrust you." Samuel smiled and took her hand. "You don't have to apologize," he said. "I know that you were scared and unsure. But I'm glad that we're together now." Madame Laura smiled back at him, her eyes shining with tears. "Me too," she said. "I love you, Samuel." "I love you too," Samuel replied, pulling her into his arms. As they hugged, Samuel felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. He knew that he had found his soulmate in Madame Laura, and he was grateful for a second chance at love. Their love story was one of redemption and forgiveness, a reminder that love can conquer even the darkest of challenges. Samuel and Madame Laura's love had been tested and tried, but in the end, it had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever.